seated.
Perfect.
And I just wanted to, we are going to come to 9. This is a very, I've been doing a lot of training, as I might have said. So this is very much looking at somatic movement. And somatic movement is connecting to the feeling, the sensory aspect of ourselves, which lowers stress. In this particular sequence is looking at stress and inflammation. But I just wanted to read one quick sentence before we come down to lying, if I may. And that is that the average human breathes erratically using only approximately 10% of their available diaphragm range, and it allows us to survive but not thrive. So basically it impacts the nervous system. And it says people who have been breathing rapidly for many years will find a relaxed state of being more difficult to access. And for these people in particular, it's very important to go slowly and encourage them to take their time. Well, of course, these people, are often the ones who go at life very quickly, very fast, go, and find it very hard. So this sequence in somatic movement is looking at specifically, the title is stress and inflammation. And it won't help if I said twisting and undulating because it's so gentle. So I'm going to invite you to come to rest. Sounds lovely. With feet hip distance apart, knees up to the ceiling. And your hands are resting on your abdomen. We're all in very air-conditioned coolness here, Sarah, it's just to make you jealous. And the invitation is just very gently to turn your head from side to side. And if you wonder what this is gently doing, it's sensing the cavities in the head, and it's registering with the brain that it no longer needs to be in a hurry. And also, the turning of the head from side to side, of course, goes across the back of the skull, which is going across some acupressure points as well. And I'm struggling to think what they are. I don't know if you've got any thoughts, Sue, on which acupressure points we're keying into.
No, not really, sorry.
Just enjoy that.
I can't think, I can't remember.
And then very gently come back to the centre and imagine breathing up the spine as you breathe in, and imagine breathing down the spine as you breathe out. Breathing up the spine on the inhalation and down the spine on the exhalation. Up and down the spine. And then we're going to very gently shift to move our arms out however you want to. You can move them out a little bit to the side, a lot to the side. You can keep your hands resting on the abdomen if that works for you. And we're going to very gently let the knees drift from side to side. But as the knees drift from side to side, so as the knees next drift to the left, just gently press the right big toe into the ground, which will make your right knee move forward slightly. Come back to the centre with your knees, and as the knees drift over to the left, Just very gently press your big toe of the left foot in, which will just move your left knee forward. And you're also moving on your pelvis. And although we're not focusing on anything else, you are also putting in a very subtle undulation in the spine. The body takes quite some time to adjust and to begin to let go, and to register that it's not being asked to support the body. So it's dropping into that relaxation centre. And I think the more wired we are, the longer it can take to move into that state. And the other aspect is if you can access sensory appreciation by feeling your way, in other words, you can keep your mind out of the equation, which means often going very slowly to appreciate those very fine, subtle movements. The cortisol levels in the body begin to drop, which they don't do particularly when you do a very fast track training. You feel physically worked out, but you are often re-energizing up. But of course, different styles, different people. And then just very gently come to the center. Knees are still up to the ceiling, feet are still hip width apart, but feel free to adjust at any point. And now we're going to come to a spinal undulation, so like a pelvic tilt, flattening the back along the ground and releasing so that the tailbone aims to the ground and there's a little gap onto your lower back. Flattening your bottom to the ground and then relaxing. And then you might notice that as you're doing this, your head starts to become involved. As your tailbone goes towards the ground and there's a little gap under your lower back, your chin comes towards your chest in a natural movement. There's no right or wrong. But this moving of the chin towards the chest, as you're going up and down now on the back of the head, is beginning to activate the vagus nerve. It's a chin to chest action. And activating the vagus nerve is anti-inflammation. But of course, we need to do this very slowly and feel the way. You're also warming the spine and encouraging blood flow along the spine from the tailbone all the way up to the head. And then come to the centre and come to hug the knees into the chest. Holding both knees with both hands. And just very gently rock your knees from side to side. And then still holding your knees, let your knees drift away from you to arm's length. And then hug the knees back into the chest. And just repeat this a few times. We'll be doing this quite naturally, but you generally start your breath, make the movement, finish the movement, and finish the breath. All of which sounds complicated, but you're wrapping the movement with your breath. And the phrases change over the years, but this is a form of breathing, coherent breathing. But effectively, if you're moving in coordinating with your breath, you are really calming your nervous system. For anybody who's got lower back issues, and this is perfect for lower back. And of course, it's imitating the almost fetal position, so it's a very protective movement. And then just place the feet to the ground, knees hip width apart. And just circle the arms up, circle the wrists, and then circle them anywhere really, just to move the fingers and the wrists. You can move the elbows, it's really very much a free form. And then just very gently come to lower your arms, straighten your legs out, and you're going to come to a lying star shape on the ground. And even this simple shape, a star shape that works for you, again I wanted to read you what this actually does. It's an adrenal response exercise, and it marries up the tone of the breath with your autonomic nervous system. So even something as simple as your version of your star has its purpose. Just staying here for a couple of breaths. You can just very gently circle your ankles a couple of times in one direction. And circle your ankles a couple of times in the other direction. And circle your wrists a couple of times in one direction. And circle your wrists a couple of times in the other direction. And then bring your feet closer together. Just stretch both arms up above you and hold your left wrist with your right hand and just stretch it. You might like to just bring the left wrist to the center of the body, slightly to the right, and then change over so that you hold your right wrist with your left hand, stretching that right arm and just slightly coming over to the left as an option. Stretch both hands and then lower both hands as you breathe out. And once more hug one knee and then the other knee into the chest. Keeping both knees together, make a little circle with the knees moving in one direction. So that means that you're massaging at the very base of the spine. And then circle both knees in the other direction. And then very gently roll to one side. If you've got space, then roll to the right, away from your heart, but don't, whatever works. And then actually stay here for a couple of breaths, almost curling in to a slightly semi-fetal position or fetal position again. And then very gently take one hand to press into the earth to bring you up, taking your time, vertebra by vertebra. And we're going to come with the hips into what is one of the 5 perfect hip poses, which is a double Z. So hopefully it doesn't matter which way you go, because we're going to do both sides. But, so I've got my, hopefully you can see, otherwise I'll get into a muddle. You can always have support under your bottom. And then slide the hand out of the front leg and just start to move the opposite shoulder in any way that you want to. So I'm lifting mine up and rolling it back. But then I'm beginning to involve my elbow to lift and roll the elbow up and back. So you won't be aware of this, but you are beginning to move the diaphragm, the intercostal muscles, the shoulders, of course. You can come forward a couple of times. You can start to involve the head, lifting up and circling the head and the neck. It's a freestyle movement, no right or wrong. You can expand your arm a little bit further. You can come back the other way. So you'll see that this is beginning to mobilise all the way around your breathing mechanism. I've noticed too that people are very tight on the diaphragm. People who play tennis a lot, well, here at the moment, but often can have problems by being they're super fit and very tense, but they don't release that diaphragm area. And then just slightly come forward over the shorten knee. And here, just go from side to side. So this is a slightly reptilian movement. And you can lift your elbows like those lizards do, reptiles. And this again works into the diaphragm and the intercostal muscles, the upper back. And my understanding is that it works into the limbic brain. And then walk your hands back and come into a gentle Baddha Konasana. If you've got any thoughts that you think ought to be massaged today, Sue, now's your chance.
Well, we're talking about sort of calming down and everything, probably the solar plexus,
Okay.
which we've done before, which is the soft part, so under the balls of your feet, in the centre.
Right.
Your feet, there's
To
like
the left of the big toe.
well, it's where you're got sort of two bones here for the balls of your feet.
Yeah.
So in the middle of the two, but just
Okay.
underneath.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
you'll feel a sort of hard point under there. So if you massage that, that's your solar plexus reflex point, which is calming. It's quite nice and simple. Don't do it too hard because sometimes it can have the other effect, go the other way. So just nice and gently. So you can do it with both your thumbs at the same time, nice and gently.
Both thumbs, Sarah, underneath the big toes. I don't know if you heard that, what Sue was saying, is the solar plexus point to massage for general calming. Sue's a reflexologist. And then just very gently come to bring your knees up, remembering which of the knees was forward in your double Z before we go on. And then just lifting up. Maybe moving your feet out from you, just stretching a little bit from side to side. Almost stretching out. And then just very gently sort of hug into your knees. And resting forward. And then, of course, try and remember which leg you use, because we're going to sit up and go to our double Z on the other side. There are 5 perfect hip health poses, and this is one of them. So, hip health is really kind of quite key. So then just extend your hand out next to your short. Does that make sense when I say the front knee? And again, with your shoulder, just explore that lifting and rolling back. And anything goes. Somatics talk about the thinking of the diaphragm and the psoas as sort of one matrix, just getting into areas that sometimes are hard to release. So this is quite different yoga from perhaps what we've been used to doing. But you can come forward, you can bring the head into it, bring the arms up, just whatever works for you. But in terms of creating space for our breath, when you move the intercostal muscles, which we are doing here, you're stretching the muscles and you're creating a little bit of extra space for your breath. You're also moving in coordination with your movement. So again, you're slowing your entire nervous system down. Sitting like this is wonderful for the hips. I'm not sure you want to sit and watch television, but they do say watch TV like this all the time. I don't know if that's step too far. And then just gently bring both hands forward. Slightly bend your elbows and again explore into this reptilian movement, which again explores the diaphragm and the upper back, the shoulders. You might know this, Sarah, the limbic brain, or going into the limbic brain, does that bypass your mind a little bit, your thinking, cognitive process?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That explains that, because they say that if you overthink things, that kind of stops the relaxation. But this reptilian movement is supposed to, as I said, connect into the limbic brain. So that's answered that question. Thank you. I find it strangely satisfying. I know Patsy hates snakes. Like anything Slytherin-like is. But anyway,
You said that instantly.
well, there is that sort of
I
like.
won't pretend ones.
Pretend.
You don't mind being one, you just don't want to be with one.
And then coming back again when you finish to that Vatikanasana, that soles of the feet together. And again, just massage either your solar plexus area, or if Sue wants to put in another.
Your lower lymphatic system is the area around the inside and outside of your ankles, but obviously you can only access your inside ankles here. So if you just press your thumbs gently, just right around the bony area of your ankles.
Love that.
It's quite nice. So that ties in with your lower lymphatic system, which
Do you
is in your groin.
Hear that the ankle bones inside and out tie into the lower lymphatic system. So if you massage your thumbs around that area, then that's really quite.
Yes, because often when you're ill, that's when you find your ankles are a bit puffy. And
Yes.
so that ties in with your lymphatic system sort of working to boost up your immune system.
So again, really nice to do that. Then I'm not so sure about this, but anyway, the invitation is to bring your knees up, hugging them in, and then stretching them out. Hugging them in, I would say not a lot actually, I would just say just a little bit, but however it works. And then sitting up, you don't have to straighten your legs out, you can just go to where you. Just play with that. The movement is breathing in, sitting up, and breathing out, sliding down, perhaps just a slight bend in the knee. And then the movement invites you to open out and then curl back in again. And open out and curl back in again. Again, open out and curl back in again. And of course, as we open out and as we curl back in again, just slightly stay forward. Now, with forward bends, it really depends. All forward bends are calming, but there are degrees of forward bends. So if you come forward too much, it sometimes can be not restful. So just find a slight restful forward position for you. And then we're going to come to gently bring the knees up. And we're going to come onto our hands and knees in a form of cat. But we still keep with the reptilian theme. So on the hands and knees, imagine your tailbone to start with is a pencil, and you're just making a circle with your tailbone. So you're circling your hips in one direction. And as you're tracing your circle with your tailbone, you can then start to involve the whole back, the shoulders. You can start to involve the head. You'll find that without even thinking about it, that the whole spine is going into a form of undulation. You choose how much you want to circle. You can either circle a little bit or you can circle a lot. And then, of course, you can start to make the circle the other way. And again, you choose whether you circle a little bit and then build up to a greater circle. And it's a freestyle movement. So it builds on this, again, if you see a fish swimming, that kind of S, as you look on top of it, as it makes its way through the water. But this is a form of that, in a way. It's moving the diaphragm, the muscles, it's moving everything in a much more fluid way. It's also, perhaps you might have a view on this, but ballet dancers can often be limited and not able to let go of everything. Letting the tummy all hang out is totally alien to them. Whereas this movement kind of allows you to fluidly let it all kind of be fluid and sway. And then come to stillness. And come to, you might like to keep your hands where they are or just slightly towards you. Come to bottom towards the heels. If your knees aren't great, then don't bring your bottom too far to the heels. And then breathing in. Come to tabletop again. Breathing out round your back. Your bottom goes towards your heels, but again, you choose how much goes to the heels. Bend your elbows as you come back up to tabletop. Soften your elbows round your back. Bottom comes towards the heels. Doesn't have to come to the heels. And rounding the back. So when you round the back like this, you are encouraging breath towards the back of the body, and you're again encouraging breath in a way that you don't necessarily always breathe this way. But again, when you take your time to go slowly, and how you get from one pose to the other is you'll find your own pattern. Then come to neutral tabletop, and then right hand forward, left hand back, left toes point towards the floor, and then bring your right arm and knee back to the ground, and round back towards the heels again. Come back to tabletop, and then there's an option to include raising the right leg, toes to the ground, left arm, I'm trying to coordinate here. Bring the arm and leg back together and round the back, bottom towards the heels, and just a couple of times back to the right arm, left leg. You don't have to stretch right out, you are engaging your core here. Both arm and knee to the ground, round. And then once more to the other side. And then come. So here we've got a choice. We can either come just to child's pose with the knees hip width, the knees wider apart and big toes together, or if you have a yearning, as Beth would say, for a downward dog, then you can come via downward dog, but I know some people don't like that. Just walking out the feet and then come to a child's pose. So if you really would like to stretch out, bend one knee and then bend the other. And then bend both knees back, and everyone comes to a form of child pose that suits them. So again, if your knees aren't great, you don't have to bring your bottom down, you can keep your bottom up in the air, so that's less pressure on your knees in one way. But just find a position that suits you. You can have hands on top of one another so that you're not coming down so far. And just take a few breaths into the back. Into your child's pose. Again, this is a forward bend, so not only does it encourage the breath into the back, it's helpful for stretching out the lower back, but it's a forward bend, and so it's calming for the nervous system. Just take a couple more breaths here. And then very unusually for us, we're going to come into prone shavasana, which is not something we do that often. So just stretching out to lie on your abdomen, your tummy. Elbows bent. Some people like to turn their head to the side, some people like to just bring their head straight down. But I wanted to read you what prone shavasana does apart from resting. Your heels can drop out to the side, and you can have your feet as wider than the backs of the knees. The heels naturally drop out. And in this way, it's kind of the other way around. It's just turning you around. It just relaxes you in a slightly different way. Because your tummy is on the ground, again, the breath is directed or encouraged to go into different parts. And it doesn't say so here, but lying on your tummy is quite good if there's any tummy things that you want to get rid of, tummy fat, because you're just, again, encouraging the breath in a slightly different pattern. And you can just gently wobble your bottom from side to side. That's called SIS, Sacroiliac Stabilizer. It's very good for people with lower back issues. And then just very gently bring your elbows back. And we're going to come back into child's pose again. But again, you choose your child's pose. It can be child pose with the knees apart and big toes together. It can be more of a puppy pose where your bottom goes up in the air. You can have your hands like fists, one on top of one another, so that your head's not quite down, quite so low. It's just adjusting the body from being totally flat. Just feel the ribs expanding, the intercostal muscles as you breathe in and you breathe out. And then very, very gently, we're going to come to a seated position of your choice. So I'm going to come into an easy pose. But you can have legs out in front of you if you really don't want to, if you've got knee issues, whatever works for you. And we're going to do a moving meditation. So bring the hands to the heart, chin down to chest, back of the neck extended. Breathing in, lift your head up, open your hands. Breathing out, bring the hands back to the chest. Start the breath in as you open then your fingers and breathing out, chin to chest. Breathing in, the air passes through your fingers, the element of air. Breathing out, chin to chest, the vagus nerve connection. Breathing in, breathing out. So the element of air connects to the heart. My understanding in Chinese medicine is that the heart and the small intestine, I think they've known, are connected to high summer. The organs very connected to summer. So this is a very lovely way to really cool us down, connecting to that summer aspect. And the hands are connected to the sense of touch, of course. In, breathing out. So this is a mindfulness exercise. It's a breathwork exercise, and it's a moving meditation. And then just one last time, let the fingers open outwards. Let the fingers float back to the heart. Chin comes to the chest. Take a moment to have a thought for the day. It can be anything positive for yourself or someone close to you. And then let that thought drift away once you've thought of it a couple of times. And then just bring your head back up to centre. Thank you everyone for joining me.